Welcome to episode 283 of the Genealogy Gems podcast. I'm Louise Cooke. You know, recently I was the keynote speaker at the South Carolina Genealogical Society conference, and I ran into Barbara Jurs. And in fact, I ran into her many years ago in Atlanta, very early on in my career, and she was very, very encouraging. But this time around, when I saw her, she was encouraging me about joining the DAR. And the fact that there's so much information available on so many of these Revolutionary War soldiers that it's not that hard necessarily to connect up to other people's work that they've done. So with that encouragement and her offer to help me in this process, I've invited her to the show today to help us all. Welcome to the show, Barbara.
Well, thank you, Lisa. I am just so excited to be here because DAR is a passion of mine, and I have been a fan of yours since the very first time that I saw you speak in Atlanta about the internet genealogy. And then it was so much fun this summer to be presenters. And my position now in South Carolina with the South Carolina DAR is the chair of the State Lineage Research Committee. So I have the opportunity of working with daughters all over South Carolina to work towards applications and what we call supplemental applications. And I still am a registrar of our chapter. My chapter is the Battle of Cowpens chapter. And so I have the pleasure of helping many ladies discover their lineage, prove their lineage, and be accepted into the DAR. And as we were talking a little bit, you were mentioning about the Daughters of the American Revolution, and so many people have the misconception that it is just a lineage society. But DAR was founded in 1890, actually October 11th coming up, and it is a service organization. So many people do not know that it is a service organization. Some of the things that we really emphasize are historic preservation, education, patriotism, but some of the other things, we foster good citizenship and we honor our ancestors. We are devoted to educating youth, preserving our past. We promote genealogy, American history, and all kinds of service projects. Anything that you have an interest in, you can find a chapter to either use your talents and gifts to help the chapter and the state and the nation. We log in our service hours all over the nation in different chapters. So it is a very vibrant and very exciting type of organization to be a part of. You're so lucky because you live in the state of Texas, and our President General is from Texas. So our President General is like the CEO of the whole organization. And there are many, many fabulous chapters in Texas. Texas is very, very much a state that supports the Daughters of the American Revolution. So you are very lucky. Many chapters to choose from if you are able to get your lineage proven.
I'm happy to hear it. Okay, so let's start at the beginning because there'll be many people who are in the same boat that I'm in, knowing that they're pretty sure they have a Revolutionary War ancestor. They think they know how they connect to that person. Give us kind of the high-level overview of what are the steps of the process, and then we can kind of get a little more into going through those steps with my situation.
Well, Lisa, there are many ways to start the process. DAR recommends that you start with what you know, which is, as you know, in genealogy, that's what many individuals are told to do. And so you start with making your pedigree chart or writing down as much as you know about your family and begin finding documents. I work with each individual a little bit differently, so sort of in a multifaceted way. If the individual knows she has a DAR relative, that really is a good way to start. So if you have a mother, a grandmother, an aunt, a great-grandmother, and you know that name, that is very helpful because she will have a verified application that will provide you a lineage that has been verified by DAR. It's very helpful to, if you're in an area, approach a chapter Or you can go on the DAR website and express your interest, and the state or a national someone will get in touch with you to tell you what chapters are in the area and help you start that process and go visit them. Each chapter has a registrar. Some chapters have lineage research committee chairs, and the registrar will meet you, and you take your information to her and can help you determine which line, whether you have a verified patriot. Now, there is some work you can do at home, because you can go onto the DAR website. You see on that page, it says what we do. So a non-member can look all over this website and learn in more detail the things that I was trying to tell you about what the society does. But at the top, you'll see join, GRS, give, members, genealogy, blog, and shop. And the join button will take you directly to the area that I was mentioning that can help you fill out an interest survey or get you in touch if you don't know someone in your area. And then the section that says genealogy, if you click on that, the genealogy tells you all kinds of things as to where you can begin. Like it says, start with what you know and speaking to your relatives, and begin collecting documents. But there are some databases. But the ancestor search, the member search, and the descendants database all have information of all verified applications that go back to the very beginning. So in your case, you had told me you had an ancestor, and that was the first thing that I did before I even looked at your pedigree, to see if he's in the system, to make sure there were not any red notes, meaning that there were problems that have been discovered since a person went in, like service or maybe an error in lineage. And then I can go and look to see how many applications there are. When was the last one that got verified? And you can do a lot of that on your own. When you have identified a chapter that you're very interested in, the registrar has the ability to go a little bit further and to see what we call images to utilize in the process of helping the applicant. But there's a lot you can do on your own. Let's just say, for example, that you did not know who your patriot was. You could use the descendants database if you had your pedigree chart, and you could plug in the names of all of your descendants. And a lot of people don't use this base, but it's wonderful for genealogists anywhere, because you can find lineages. So you've put your chart up there, and I actually did this in preparation to see where would be an applicant in your line. I was hoping that maybe I'd find a great grandparent or, someone much closer. We all hope that as registrars. But I was able to identify 2 children of your patriot, who is, we were talking about whether you pronounce it Yehu or Jehu. And there were some children that were identified, and one of yours is a verified, the son Henry. And so you can go in, as I said, into that descendants database and put all the different descendants' names in, the basic name and maybe a state if you know where he was born, and pull up different suggestions. And that helps, especially if you don't know if you have an ancestor. But if you have an ancestor like you did, then I sort of start at the top. Because at the time we started talking, I did not know your full pedigree. The other way is like the DAR suggested, is that if you know your pedigree, you would go work your way up. If you have a DAR member, you can put the member number in, like say your aunt or your grandmother or a great aunt, if she will share the DAR member. Now, people who do not have the higher levels, if you're just the general public, you will not be given any names of anyone that is living, because DAR is very, very protective about identity.
Well, that's terrific. So it was an advantage then to have my pedigree chart. If somebody's watching and they haven't gone that far back, then really it's starting with the genealogical research, citing your sources. We're going to need those sources, it sounds like, to make the proof along the way of the connections. And there's the website. Barbara, when you were talking about the search links, do we need to have an account? Is there any kind of restriction, or can just the general public go in and start searching?
The general public can search, absolutely. You can get lots of great hints. You can put in ancestors' names to find out if they are a verified patriot. You can use the descendants and see if any of the descendants are in lineages. You can use the membership to see if you find that there is if you have an aunt that is a member, it will put that in and find out whether there is a verified lineage. Hopefully it is and doesn't have some things that come about, because as more and more applications are done and more research is done, sometimes those early applications that were not done with the sources that we utilize now with the genealogical proof standards, they were many times hearsay or letters or books, and DAR has, and rightly so, been putting a lot of emphasis on the proof, because it is proof of bloodline, the biological line. And I also forgot to say too that they have a wonderful section that's for Bibles. Bible records. Now you can get some hints as a non-member, but again, when you work with the registrar can actually help you with your research to identify whether there's a Bible with your actual family, because DAR has been collecting Bible records and still is collecting Bible records, transcribing them. It's a fabulous project. We also have what is called the GRC, and that has many books, and DAR daughters have been transcribing, going to graveyards, going to repositories for many years, and transcribing and making books that can be utilized either for hints or, in some cases, when it's an actual transcription, is accepted for part of the lineage proof. The library link to the DAR is incredible. And then there's a Patriots Index also. So you can go to the Patriots Index and find out about all kinds of patriots. The DAR has an incredible amount of genealogical information that even a non-DAR member can utilize. I know many of the Sons of the American Revolution applicants, because the SAR usually accepts a DAR application, not vice versa. And they will often go on the public site to see if there are lineages to help with the individual in their SAR application, and also other societies too.
Today's episode is sponsored by MyHeritage, a global discovery platform enjoyed by 110 million people worldwide. MyHeritage has it all and offers a full-service experience that bridges your past, present, and future. The MyHeritage DNA Kit reveals your ethnic origins and finds your new relatives based on shared DNA. It's popular all over the world, and their constantly growing DNA database means that more matches to new relatives are just around the corner. You'll receive a percentage breakdown of your ethnic origins from 42 supported regions and weekly email updates as new DNA matches are found. It's also the leading DNA service for anyone with European origins. Make the most of your DNA results with a MyHeritage subscription and access advanced tools for genetic genealogy, like the theory of family relativity, autoclusters, shared ancestral places, and much more. Order your kit today at myheritage.com/DNA. Already taken a DNA test with another service? Upload your DNA data to MyHeritage for free to receive DNA matches and access new discoveries. That's myheritage.com/DNA. So as you were looking at my pedigree chart and you were looking people up in the system, we know that Jehu served in the Revolutionary War. Does the system, when we go and search, does that tell us that I indeed have somebody at some point who was a member? Did you find other members? There must have been somebody, I guess, who tied into that same ancestor. But how do I know when I look at it what work I might need to do to make sure that I can prove that I connect to that?
That's a good question, Lisa. Well, yes, I did look up Jehu Burkhart. There are 37 DAR members who have joined under him. The most recent was probably about 3 years ago. I can't give you the specifics on that. And that particular person went in on a different sibling than yours. The son is Henry. And it's also, that's another really good point when you're looking for your patriot. If you do know a patriot, knowing who the child is, whether it's male or female, is extremely important, because that helps when you pull up on the database. It helps you figure out which applications will go under that particular child. As doing genealogy, you always have to remember that sometimes you've got to go out into the sibling lines. Now, you were lucky and that Henry was proven, but let's just say that there was another sibling of Henry that you descended from, and he had not been a proven line. You would want to find out what documentation the descendant, the DAR member, submit for that sibling. Maybe there's a Bible record that lists all of the children. And that's where, when you really begin the process seriously with a chapter and with a registrar or a lineage research chair, well, the registrars are actually able to go in and look at the many of the documents that were submitted to help you in your genealogical proofs. Now, you ask about the genealogical proofs for DAR. Oh gosh, I calculated it one time, but at 8 generations, the number of tiny data entries that we make from the name of the person, which sometimes has a first name, a middle name, and a last name, the date of birth, which has a day, a month, and a year, and then the location of the place, which can have a town, a county, and a state. If you look at each generation and see the number of tiny data entry that you need, and then multiply that by 8, you come up with anywhere from over 300 to 400 tiny facts. So as you collect your documents, you always have to be thinking about these things. You need to be able to prove a date of birth and a place of birth, and a date of death and a place of death. And that varies according to the generation. So in generations 1, 2, and 3, DAR expects completeness. And so you would need to, for example, for you would have to provide a complete amount of information for your birth. And it used to be a requirement that if you were married, you had to provide your spouses. That's now optional. If you have children or nieces and nephews, you may want to go ahead and do that, or anticipate grandchildren, because it makes it a whole lot easier. As you know, sometimes getting vital records is tough. And if you go ahead and do that and have it in the system, then it gets verified. Now, once you hit the 4th generation, the 4th generation is a tricky generation in the sense that DAR says that beginning with the 4th, you only have to provide a minimal amount of information, and that is either a place of birth and date, or a place of death and the date of death. One or the other, not half of each. However, many of us have ancestors now where the 4th generation is in a time when vital records are available. And so DAR expects that if the vital records are available, you should try your hardest to get those. So, and registrars advised me, and my mentor registrar, who'd been a registrar for 33 years, who I took her place, she always taught me, as well as many other registrars, Treat the fourth generation like the third. In other words, try to go past the minimum and try to get your death certificates and your birth certificates. The marriage certificates, I really encourage, because once you get back, it proves the name changes. And it is the easiest way to either get a marriage record, and there is a difference between a marriage record and a marriage certificate. Try to get that, because that's the easiest way to prove a name change. And so then you follow that rule from the fourth generation, treat it like the third. That's just good advice. Then the fifth, all the way up to the patriot, follow that same procedure. When you get to the patriot, there are a lot of little caveats to it, because the patriot has a set of data that is required. And if it's already verified, you don't have to redo it. The spouse has another. And the registrar has a guidelines book, and she can tell you specifically what your scenario is, because she can go in and look to see how many pieces of data are missing. But basically, the patriot needs a date of death and a place of death and a birth.
Are we going to be submitting this information on a printed form? Are we providing the information to the registrar and they are entering it? Or are we entering directly into a website form? In what method are we going to be delivering all this in our final application?
Well, good questions. DAR has paper forms that are still being utilized, and we now have gone to electronic version. And the electronic works really, really wonderfully if the member is able to contribute electronically and work with the registrar, who also has been trained to do that. Some people really, really like that. You just have it's a teamwork approach, and it can be done long distance. Some prefer to still do the paper. The normal process, and I can use yours as an example. If you had approached me and said, "Hey, I'm interested in joining the Battle of Cowpens chapter in South Carolina. I'm moving there." I would download your Patriot, and I would take the most recent application, and in your case, it was about 3 years ago, and I would download it and do what we call build an app, so that there would be an application populated automatically with your ancestor. And I would take out all of the generations that have nothing to do with you. And then that's when I would look to see, did Lisa have a great grandmother who was in DAR? And if you had, then I would go to that application and download it and merge it, or copy and paste it in. And that's where each chapter is a little bit different depending upon how large they are, how trained their genealogists are. Some chapters have big teams where the registrar can download that application, send it with the permission of the applicant, and have people work with that individual and help them build it. Others, like in my case, so many of the ladies need a lot of help with the lineage research, and I'm training people in my chapter. I can send your downloaded one to a trusted DAR member and say, "Lisa, I would like you to be working with this particular person." She can send it to you electronically and let you fill it in as to the best of your ability with the documents that you have. The electronic version is totally different. It has a totally different set of process, and that's where you do it in a chapter where that is being practiced.
It sounds like it's a teamwork approach, as you said, with a local chapter. So how does a new applicant decide which chapter to join? Do they each have their own website, or do we do that through the main website?
That's a great question, too. We've had several Texans move to South Carolina, and they found out about the chapters in my region by going to the DAR national website and filling out the electronic information. And it gets filtered back to our South Carolina membership chair, or maybe directly to a district director, or maybe to several chapters of the regions, which are the names for our presidents, or the registrars. In your particular case, and I did a little bit of research to find out what chapters are in the area where you live, and I can share that information with you, and then you can contact each of those chapters from the website. I just put in a search, Texas DAR chapters, and there is a long list of chapters all over the state, and many of them have fabulous websites, and it tells all about their chapter, what their projects are, and sometimes they have Facebook pages, sometimes they have listings of the different awards they've won or the different projects that they are involved in. And then I encourage, most chapters now love to have guests. And once you make that contact with either the regent, which is, like I said, the president, or a registrar, or a membership chair, if the chapter has a membership chair, they will invite you to a meeting. And I encourage you to go to a meeting. Some other things that may help is if you're still in the working career, you might want to find a chapter that meets on the weekends or in the evenings. But if that doesn't matter, it may be that choosing a day of the week is more important because you might have other obligations, say on Mondays and Tuesdays, you can't go to. There are all kinds of ways to start the investigation. And because you have communicated to me that you didn't already have some chapters in mind, I think going to the DAR website and looking and reading all about DAR, and then Googling Texas chapters and choosing your area of where you live and what would be the closest to you, and contacting them, because there's usually on their website, if you're interested, then they give information about them. If you are joining during this time, you are going to be joining during a very exciting time. Most chapters and the National are gearing up for the 250th anniversary of the Revolution. So many chapters are doing all kinds of things to get ready for that.
Today's episode is sponsored by newspapers.com, an essential tool for discovering the stories of your ancestors. Dive into newspapers and see your family history unfold as you search nearly 1 billion pages in seconds. With Memorial Day approaching, pay tribute to the military veterans in your family by discovering their stories on newspapers.com. With papers from the 17th century to today, you'll find military narratives dating back to the Revolutionary War. Whether it's a Civil War survival story or a World War II letter home, newspapers chronicle the tragedies and the triumphs of our veterans. Newspapers.com is the largest online newspaper archive, and it's the ultimate resource for military research. Once you've discovered your family's military heroes, go beyond and find the everyday stories that shaped your family. And here's the best part. Our listeners get an exclusive offer. Use promo code Genealogy Gems. That's all together, no space, Genealogy Gems, for a 20% discount on your subscription. That's Genealogy Gems at newspapers.com. Sign up today at newspapers.com and embark on a journey of discovery. Well, I'd love to just wrap up and have you share. I'd love to know what has been involved in the DAR meant for you. What do you like most about it?
Oh my gosh, Lisa. Well, I was lucky that I was in the children of the American Revolution from about age 11 or 12 until going off to college. My grandmother had been in the DAR. I did not know it was her dream for me to be in both organizations, the Children of the American Revolution and the DAR. She died when I was a young child, but she instilled in me, as did all of my grandparents, a love for genealogy and patriotism and history. And as careers come and families and so forth, there was no one that told me to join right after CAR, to go right into DAR. I wish I had known that, but that's okay. I had the opportunity to go and visit a chapter and joined, and it has been one of the most rewarding experiences I just love the idea of learning about our Constitution, learning about the history of the nation, but also the history of the region where I live. I am native South Carolinian, although I've lived in other southeastern states, and my ancestry are all northern. And I learned so much about how the backwoodsmen and the militia in the upstate of South Carolina was so involved in Cowpen, the Battle of Cowpens, and Kings Mountain. Having grown up in historic Camden, South Carolina, where the Battle of Camden was, I was very aware of that. I also love the projects that many of the chapters do. We support veterans. We support patriotism. We support education. We give scholarships. We do all kinds of things for schools. It's just unbelievable the amount of service that we can do. And so I love that aspect of what we as women are doing for our nation. I could just talk on and on and on. I love the camaraderie of other women who enjoy learning. And so many of the chapters have incredible programs that can touch on all topics. And I know that my education has just grown so much. And then, of course, loving genealogy as I do, working on applications and memorializing these ancestors and honoring the ladies that join and telling them the stories that I discovered that they may not have known. They just might have known. I know I had a Revolutionary War ancestor, but in the process, you're starting from the time you are born and having to research or look at all of the generations, and you learn things about your family and learn things about the family that you are helping the applicant with that they don't know, and they learn so much heritage. I could just go on and on. You can tell I'm so excited about it. I think all the lineage societies have this enthusiasm and excitement also.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your enthusiasm and excitement with all of us. I'm excited to explore it further and do my homework, make some of those final connections, and also get a chance. Like I'm going to take you up on the idea of I'd like to go visit a couple of local chapters and see where I'd like to get involved. There's nothing better than learning more about family history, our country, how we were fortunate enough to be in this wonderful, wonderful country and here today and helping to share that. I have a new grandbaby on the way, so there's just lots of generations to come.
When I was doing yours, and I told you about this through an email, I got so excited because not your direct line, but the sibling ended up settling in a county where I have property, and I was looking at documents and seeing names of clerks and seeing rivers and talking about the deeds and how they got there. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is just so wonderful. I wish you could see pictures of where part of her family went to. But even before that, the North Carolina connection and the Yadkin River Valley is just such a beautiful area. And I was like, oh, I wish I could show Lisa where part of her family came. Well, of course, the sibling that ended up in Ashe County came from parents that would have gone into that Yadkin Valley. But that's part of the thing of being able to share with someone that lives far away from their ancestral area and tell them how, if you've had personal experience with it.
Yeah. And it's amazing how many connections we all have. I'm sure that happens a lot as you visit with different people that are part of the DAR. And certainly we find that in our genealogy serendipity of people we sit next to at the archives of the libraries. It's amazing. Wonderful to talk with you. I'm going to check back in with you after I do more homework. And Barbara, thank you so much for helping all of us learn more about the DAR and get involved. Appreciate it.
Well, it has been an honor, Lisa, to talk with you and to share your excitement, and also an honor to represent South Carolina DAR and the National DAR and my chapter. So thank you so much.